Are you ready?
Let's go.
Now circling in the neutral zone.
Here's the pitch on the way. 36 yards for the win.
This.
Here comes a big chance. The shot.
Is
this the dagger?
The neutral zone.
Home run. Good.
This is as good as it gets.
Now, here's your host, two-time Paralympian, Brock Richardson.
What's going on? It's time for another edition of The Neutral Zone. I am indeed your host, Brock Richardson. Coming up on this episode of The Neutral Zone, we are going to be joined by broadcaster Daniella Ponticelli, who, for the first time in her career, got the opportunity to broadcast at the 2026 Winter Olympic Games, and she will tell us all about that and her career as a whole. Plus, the Paralympics are off and running. We're going to tell you what's been going on in the early stages of the games. I'm joined by Josh Watson and Cam Jenkins. Here come your headlines.
Neutral Zone headlines.
Like Brock said, the Paralympics are off and running, and at the time of recording, Canada has won 7 medals, with 1 gold, 3 silver, and 3 bronze.
We at the Neutral Zone are sad to announce the passing of Hall of Famer and legendary Canadian wheelchair basketball coach Paul Bowes. Paul was a fixture in wheelchair basketball for nearly 4 decades. He led Canada to Paralympic gold in 2000 and 2004, a World Championship title in 2006, and most recently, a silver medal at the 2023 Pan American Games. More than the medals, he shaped generations with dignity, respect, and courage. There will never be another one like Paul. We send our condolences to Paul's family and to the entire wheelchair basketball community.
Those are your headlines for this week. If you want to get a hold of us on social, here's how you can do that.
And welcome back to the Neutral Zone broadcast booth.
Play ball.
We're set to get this bowl game underway. The first pitch is brought to you by Brock Richardson's X account at Neutral Zone BR.
Right.
Pitch and a strike. Hey gang, why not strike up a chat with Claire Buchanan from the Neutral Zone? Find her on X at Neutral Zone CB. There's a swing of the chopper out to second base, right at Claire as she picks up the ball, throws it over to the first base for a routine play.
Out.
And fans, there's nothing routine about connecting with Cam and Josh from the Neutral Zone at Neutral Zone Cam J and at J Watson 200. Now that's a winning combination.
One of my favorite things about doing this podcast is when the Paralympics are on, because we obviously pride ourselves on, being a parasports podcast. And obviously the biggest thing that happens every 2 years is either the winter or summer games. And we're in the thick of that right at this moment. So I want to know, just generally, without going into detail, because I'm going to ask you for detail in just a second, what are your thoughts overall on the early stages of the Paralympic Games? Let's start with Josh on this one, and we'll go straight over to Cameron.
For me, I think the thing that's standing out the most is that I'm hearing a lot of chatter about the conditions, whether they be, icy or slushy or this or that. Conditions appear to be coming up in conversation quite a bit. I've even seen past Paralympians online talking about how Paralympics is too late in the year and the conditions aren't good and this, that, and the other. So that for me is something that I'm interested to see how that plays out. But obviously, we've had Tyler Turner in the ski cross and his exciting race where we thought he might come in with a gold, and he's come in with a bronze, which is still an amazing achievement. We have the skiers bringing in medals, which is always exciting. There's lots of good, but it's interesting to hear about conditions being brought up.
Yeah, for me, it's so great to see the Paralympics. I love it being on CBC Gem. And this is, I think, the second time that it's been on CBC Gem. Just so you can kind of watch it when you want to, because they have the replays too. So it's good to be able to watch it at your convenience, and that's the way the world is going. As far as the athletes are concerned, I'm watching a lot of the wheelchair curling. And I believe at the time of recording, the Canadian Paralympic curlers, I believe they're 4-0. Tomorrow they're going to have a tough couple of games, so hopefully they come out on the winning side. I watched that phenomenal shot by the Vice on Team Canada, and it went through so many rocks. It was like a minefield to go through to hit that rock out. And oh man, that's probably one of the best shots that I've seen, whether it's stand-up curling or wheelchair curling. That was a great shot. So it's been exciting for me to watch the wheelchair curling. And then, of course, my first love is always the para ice hockey. And they've played a couple games now and won both. So I think we're all kind of waiting for us to play Czechia and or the United States, and especially the United States, and see how we do. The skiing's been phenomenal. I've been really impressed with the blind skiers and how they have wild. The guide. And, it's in a fluorescent green or fluorescent yellow, and it has a big G on it. And then the... partially sighted or blind skier is going down a hill, and it's like a super G, and I wouldn't do it, and I'm fully sighted. Like, there's no way I would do it. And also that they have, headsets within the helmets that the guide and that the skier are able to talk to one another, and she's able to guide the person down the hill. Because it's not as though, like I've seen skiing before where the guide goes down, but they have kind of like a band where the guide's holding the band and then the skier's holding the bands. But no, this is like they're going down a full-on super G hill at fast speeds, and they're partially blind, and they make it down the hill, and they don't fall.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Wild. My thing, and I want both of you to weigh in on this. Let's go to Josh on this one when I pose the question. But sure. My thing that I was so fascinated in watching when I was watching the Super G, because when you watch the summer and you watch the partially sighted racers or fully blind, depending on what they are, they're having a guide, and that guide is running right alongside them. They have to be tethered. And the rule is in the running that the guide has to cross the line second. I was watching a Super G race, and the guide crossed first, and that seemed to be totally okay. I was like... As I'm watching it, I'm like, ooh, the guide went through first. Like, this is not good. And it was a Canadian situation where the guide, and it's like, oh, this is not good. Does it bother you, Josh, that the rule seems to be different in skiing versus running, or do you just look at it and go, two different sports, two different rules?
I think the answer is twofold. So for me, different rules, different sports. In running, being a para-athlete myself, you have more space. When you're running with a guide, you, I believe, have access to 2 lanes as opposed to just one. So it's easier for the guide at the end of the race to hang back a step or two and let the athlete cross first. In a snow sport or a skiing sport like we're talking, to me, it's a matter of safety. The guide has to come first because the guide has to guide the athlete all the way through the finish. Now, if you watched closely, and admittedly I didn't, I don't believe the clock stops until the athlete actually crosses. And so if the athlete is 2 seconds behind the guide, well, then their time is going to be 2 seconds slower. If the guide and the skier are more in sync and they're closer together somehow without killing each other, then the time obviously is going to be faster. The other thing, just speaking about the skiing, that I thought was really sweet was watching the race with Kalle Eriksson and finding out that his guide is actually his girlfriend.
Yeah.
That was very cute, I thought.
Really cool. Yeah, Cameron, is it more for you? Different sports, different rules? Do you even care? Like, are you going to tell me why you even asking me this question? Because
Of course I care. That's why I'm on the show, because I care. Different sport, different rules. I think Josh outlined it beautifully on what he said. And when you're running or when you're walking or, doing that in the summer games, there's less of a chance of a person falling down. And I'm sure if you were tethered to the guide, there could, like Josh said, for safety reasons, I'm sure there'd be much more chance of a crash or an accident falling down. So I think it's better that they do it this way. And like Josh said as well, it also wouldn't surprise me if they stop the clock once the para athlete crosses the finish line and not when the guide goes, because that would be pointless to do it that way. So I think it's better to not be tethered for when you're downhill skiing, because I just think that would cause too many accidents.
Yeah, I have a very poignant question when it comes to para ice hockey in a bit. But any other highlights, Cameron, that you want to highlight that you may have missed in your little debrief at the beginning?
Well, I guess the only other thing I'd like to say is for the mixed doubles. That is also going on. It's really unfortunate that Canada didn't end up having a team at the Paralympics, because apparently they went 8-0 during the round robin, and then as soon as the playoffs started, the first game they lost. So that's the only reason why there's not a team there. So that's really unfortunate. So I guess I should highlight that too. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to the competition, and also I'm looking forward to more competitions being part of the Paralympics, because there's a lot of skiing, there's a lot of hockey, a lot of wheelchair curling, but after that, there's not like a super amount. And I know Stephanie Reed, who was a Paralympian for Great Britain, she is trying to advocate for figure skating to be in the Paralympics. So, things like that. I would love to be able to see some more events to be part of the Paralympics.
That is totally fair. Josh, any highlights that you want to highlight that we may have missed?
I just think it's important that we recognize Natalie Wilkie being the first person to win gold in a biathlon for Canada. That's a huge deal. Again, we talked about Kelly Erickson and Sierra Smith and their silver medal. Of course, Mark Arends is a perennial favorite for a medal for Canada. He's already got his first silver of the games, so that's going to be exciting to see how the rest of his competitions go. And Tyler Turner, obviously getting his bronze after that horrible crash, and still managing to get there in the end. I don't know how that race was judged, but I do think that in the end, the right decision was made there. So,
yeah, you guys have hit on all the highlights that I had, but I'll just piggyback on the Tyler Turner situation. I watched that race live when it happened, and I don't know enough about snowboarding and the way it's officiated, but obviously Tyler was elevated into the third position due to some extra contact that was not considered racing within the game. So obviously that's a thing. I mean, he was expected to defend his title and didn't, and the fact that he was on the podium and mentioned, he was with his two friends, and that's fine too. But it's good to see that he was on the podium there. I'm going to ask you guys a question, and there's no right or wrong answer to this. I was doing some digging on some stuff to kind of throw out there today, and I found a stat that I'm surprised by. So I'm going to give you the question, and then I want your prediction, and then I'll give you the real answer. Start with Cameron on this one. Canada has an extensive history with blank number of medals through summer and winter games. How many medals do you think Canada has won over the course of all its Paralympic Games, summer and winter?
I'm going to say 276.
Josh?
We're talking in all Paralympics?
In all Paralympics.
Call me pessimistic. I'm going to go with 200.
Wow, you guys were both a little pessimistic. The answer was 1,100 in
Holy
all
crap.
Wow.
games. Yeah.
Okay.
I found this stat. Thank you, Gemini. When I was looking at the highlights of what Paralympic medals had happened, and then it was like, hey, Canada has 1,100 medals in both summer and winter games. So I was like, hey, this is cool.
That is cool.
I'm gonna go first on this one because I'm the host and I said so.
Okay.
The question is, how do we find CBC's coverage thus far? And I'm going to really answer this with another stat provided to us by our very own Claire Buchanan.
Okay, hold on, Brock. Hold on. Full disclosure, you have worked with the CBC before.
Yes, I have.
Okay, carry on.
Yes. Out of the 12 hosts at the Paralympic Games, out of the 12 talent, as it is listed, 10 are para-athletes. That is an incredible statistic. And hats off to CBC for making darn sure that they represented para-athletes. Most of them, actually, all of them have done winter sports in some form or another. Nathan Clement, who has done both sides of it, summer and winter, he's doing a lot of work with Anastasia Busis, and then we've got commentators in each of the booths as well. This is an incredible stat, and according to our very own Claire Buchanan, CBC was very intentional about this, and I love it. Josh, when Claire put that in our group, you had some poignant comments and saying you love to hear that. So I'll let you comment on this first.
Yeah, I do. I think it's very important that as a Paralympics, we have Paralympians, just in the same way that for Olympics and World Championships, we have former athletes in those sports. Like Anastasia is a former Olympian, which is fantastic, but she's an Olympian. She's not a Paralympian. So to have Nathan and to have Claire and to have Billy Bridges and all these others involved in the broadcast, darn it, that's the way it should be. Like if we can give Olympians spots to commentate and to do color for World Championships and Olympics, then we should have Paralympians doing the same for Paralympic events. And I dare say it needs to continue for World Championships and Para Hockey Cups. And we need to see more parasports on GEM and other platforms.
Here.
Yeah. Once again, Josh took the words right out of my mouth when it comes to that.
I do
it's
that
really
sometimes.
nice to... Sorry, what was that, Josh?
I said I do that sometimes.
It's great to see so many Paralympians commentating and giving their knowledge that they have in regards to the events that they used to compete in as a Paralympian. It's great to see hosts like Stephanie Reed doing the nighttime hosting duties. And is it Ariana that's doing the daytime?
It's Anastasia, the speed skater. Yeah.
Okay. So it's nice to see that. And I know that like for some of the segments, little interviews, there's a Paralympian and she plays sitting volleyball. And I apologize, I forget her name, so I really apologize for that. But it's so nice just to see so many Paralympians being a part of this process, and I hope it continues. And I think we need to demand that it continues to, give feedback and not just always, why aren't the Paralympics on TV and why aren't they? We've also got to give kudos when they're doing something well. So writing to CBC or posting when they put content out to say, thank you so much for having so many Paralympians, on the show, because that shows that you care about their opinion and what they can bring. So I think it's wonderful. And, we usually critique them for not doing a good job, a lot of broadcasters. And I think now we need to give them, the 5 stars when they're doing something really right.
Look, let me put this in as plain words as I can put. I hear all the, I'm going to say it. I hear all the bitching and moaning from social media. Oh, the Paralympics should have equal coverage. Yeah, I hear you. But the fact of the matter is that in winter in particular, they don't have the same number of sports. Thus, they're not doing sports all day because there's not as many. So what CBC is doing, every day they're doing coverage for like 3 to 5 hours on the main network, then everything minus one curling game that I wanted to watch and it wasn't there, and I was so peeved on Sunday morning when I couldn't get it, because I was like, you run advertisements that suggest everything's here and this is not here and WTF, and then I get in trouble from Cameron because I didn't get up at 4:25 in the morning and watch it. Forgive me.
A real fan, a real host of a great Paralympic show should be up and watching it live.
No, thank you.
That game, I watched it live.
And I guess I should have. And I think that was the universe saying to me, I think Josh is more on my bandwagon on this one. 4:25, too early for that.
There's a 4:25 in the morning now?
Well, actually, I think it started around 3:30, but whatever.
That's even worse. I only get up that early to fish.
And you don't even fish. Don't even give me that.
Exactly. I haven't done that since I was a teenager.
Exactly.
All right. Look at, I'm going to ask when we talk about para ice hockey, what I have seen from the Canadians and the US is exactly what you would think you would see. Both being victorious in both of their opening games. How do I put this? Cameron, I'm coming to you first.
You're the host. You should know how to word this.
I'm going to put this way.
Okay.
Who does the victories at a large margin benefit more heading towards a gold medal game, or does it matter? Cameron?
I don't think it matters. I think USA scored 12 goals in one of their games, and Canada only scored 8 goals in one of their games, like one of the first games that they both played. Like, what does it matter? You're playing against different teams. And unless Canada plays the team that the USA played, where, if they only get it 5-0 and the USA team beat them 12-0 and it's the exact same team that they play against, I don't know, maybe you could kind of look at something and say, okay, well, USA might be the better team because they scored more goals than Canada, but that's why you play the games. You never know. Yeah. Maybe Canada in that, particular situation, like in today's game, as of the second period, they had hit 3 or 4 goalposts when it was already like 8-0. So how many goalposts did they hit in that game to not, like, there's so many different factors. You can't really judge it until they start playing one another. And you can only really base it on if they have the same players on both teams, like over the past few years, and take a look at who's won. And I think the States have won, except for Canada. I think for one of the World Championships, they won it by a goal. Maybe was it in overtime?
2024.
Yeah. Was it an overtime that they got that, or was it regulation?
I can't remember. I know it was by one goal.
I know they won Canada, so I don't know. When I look at USA, they have an amazing player in Declan Farmer. And their game where they've go in and they retrieve the puck in the offensive zone is phenomenal, and Canada has never really been able to match that. So we'll see what happens this year, because I think Canada has a few new players on there. They seem to be doing well so far, but I think when you're playing against teams that aren't as good as you, you've got to score goals, obviously, to win the game, but I think you've really got to work on the other stuff too, and that's the defensive, where should you be, and things like that, because sometimes in a blowout, you get lazy and you don't necessarily do things that you would do in a tight game.
Yeah, to me, unfortunately, we're at the stage in para hockey where we were with the women's game a number of years ago, where Canada and the United States are unfortunately clearly the top two, and everybody else is just kind of coming behind. One day, I think we will see a more competitive tournament. But for right now, unless, say, Canada was to win a lot of closer games versus the United States, winning in blowouts, for example, I don't think the round robin really matters much for anything. The round robin should be for getting your systems in place, deciding how you're going to defend, as Cameron mentioned, and ironing out all the kinks, because realistically that you should beat the Slovakias of the world. You should beat I haven't seen today's game, so I don't remember who they played today, but
Japan.
You should beat the Japanese. You should beat the Italians. You should beat the Czechs. Like, these teams just don't have the players that the rest of us do. So your round robin really doesn't matter in terms of getting ready for the medal round. You really should have a cakewalk for the Canadians and the Americans until you get to the gold medal game. And then it's going to be what it's going to be, and it's going to come down to, as Cameron said, the tactics. Do you have a way of defending Declan Farmer? Do you have a way of defending Brodie Roybal? Can you beat Jen Lee? Because at the end of it all, you have to put more pucks behind Jen Lee than the Americans put behind Corbin Watson or Adam Kingsmill. That's what it comes down to.
And another thing that I heard on the broadcast today when I was watching the first couple of periods of Canada-Japan, well, two interesting points. Bowden, who used to play for Team Canada, is an assistant coach on Japan. He's living in Japan, and he's an assistant coach there. And the second thing that I found interesting, of the 3 times that they've played in the Paralympic Games, Japan has beat Canada twice. One was in a semifinal game, and they won the gold medal. And the other one I don't know, but Japan has won twice, and Canada has won once. So I think Japan's going through a transition right now. And, when I turn the game off to do this lovely show, it was 8-0. So I'm pretty sure that they won, but I haven't seen the final score.
I haven't either. I'm planning on going and watching the third period. Not that I need anyone to hold off on, ruining the fact that they won or didn't, because I can tell you that if they gave up 9 goals in the third period, there's more
a big problem.
That's just the reality of where we're at with that. But
if they blew an 8-0 lead to Japan, then there needs to be a Canadian Hockey Summit on why we can't play para hockey.
I did see Team Canada curling almost give up a 9-2 lead. So, I mean,
9-2, and that was like in the 5th end or 4th, 5th, or 6th end. Like, they only had 4 ends to go.
Points, like 6 straight stolen points.
Yeah, they won though. Be positive.
That's what you keep saying, but I just how did we do this? Like I remember I said to Cameron, did you know that they only won 9-8? And he goes, yeah, guy, I put it in our group. I'm like, I missed that altogether. I missed it altogether. There was a time I think Canada was playing their opening para ice hockey game, and I was like, oh, it's 9-2 after like 4 ends. I'm not.
They'll
this
be
is
fine.
And then I come back and it's 9-8. It's like, oh, never mind. This is no longer
And the last
good.
shot that they threw was Canada, because they had the hammer, and Idison, I believe, is the skip. He almost blew it. They had to do a measure in order to realize that Canada got the point, or whatever happened. I forget now. I'm getting too uptight about it now as I'm speaking about it, but they had to do a flip and measure. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. No,
That's curling. It comes down to millimeters.
It sure does.
Then he made a terrific double takeout to score like 4 in the game afterwards, and like today they were
that shot. Oh,
they were leading 9-2 today, and I was, or 9-0, and I was like, can I turn this off? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, but they shook hands the next end after that, so we're all good there. But it's the life of curling, and I've learned not to turn things off. Final one for you guys on the para side for this week, because next week it will be done, and we'll get to debrief it all and all this, but. As we sit here 3 days into the Paralympic Games, the easy answer to this is medal count. And if that is your answer, fine. But how do you define success versus failure on the Paralympic side? For me, I already look at this as a success because we got 3 medals on day 1, which blew the Olympics to the wind, because it took us 2 or 3 days to get a medal on the Olympic side. So to me, that's the measure of success, and they've already surpassed that for me. For you guys, do you have any other measure of success? Let's start with Cameron, because I feel like I went to Josh twice in a row. So let's go to you twice in a row.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that. I just think that it's horse bleep as far as how they do the medal count.
You can say it, horse shit. We're not sponsored. It's fine.
Oh, I can say horse shit? Okay, so it's horse shit. And they do it, and I can't do a damn thing about it, but I think it's horse shit, that they do it by the amount of gold medals that you have. So technically, a team may win 5 gold medals and maybe no other medals, and another team could have like 26, 27 medals, but because maybe they only have 1 gold medal, that they aren't first as far as the team, because somebody got 5 gold medals and nothing else. I think that's horseshit, and I'd like to see that change personally, but I know it's not going to happen, so I'm not getting, too anxious about it or too upset, or I'm not going to write anything to the IPC to say this should change, because I know it's not going to make a damn difference. But I don't know, that's kind of my pet peeve with the medal counts. And I don't think that if you only win 5 medals and another team wins 27, that I think it's more successful that the other team won 27 medals. So I think that's kind of what success is. But in parasports as well, we're taught at a young age, it's all about the personal best. So even if you don't win a medal, but if you get a personal best, I still think that is success, because that's showing that you're getting better, you're doing better, and then there's still room for improvement.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I learned something based on what Cameron just said, that you give him the liberty to swear. He does it a few times to make sure that he gets his point. So there we go.
Point emphasized.
What's your take on this? How do you define success on the para side?
Obviously, it would be nice to base it on medals, but we know that certain countries, China, Ukraine, United States, they have more athletes, and therefore they're going to potentially have more medals. And for the benefit of Cameron, I did find out that Olympics.com does allow you to sort the medal table by total medals. Yeah. So you can always find that out if you want to. China has 17.
Yeah, and I understand that, but it's when it comes down to it, the Olympics have it that they judge it by how many gold medals you win, and whoever has the most gold medal is number one on the list.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's so superficial to look at it that way. It's the easy way. It's the cop out. It's the, you know. But I mean, I understand, Cameron, and I'll let you back in because I don't think you were done. I got passionate and jumped in. I understand your point, albeit a bit dramatic and emphasized with if one country wins 5 gold medals and somebody else wins 27 medals, that's where we lean. But that is the reality, and that is frustrating, and it really puts it into, you get first, that means more than if you had, 10 times the amount of silver medals and bronze medals. It's not the right way to look at it. Total medals is how it should be looked at. It's looked at in other sports that way. I don't know why at the Olympic and Paralympic level it's looked at any other way. Josh, you were saying, I don't think you were done.
No, I wasn't, but that's okay. I'll just let you go.
What is the host allowed to interrupt us like that? Just when they want to get a point out? Like we can't even finish our thoughts? Like, ugh.
At any rate,
maybe I should do this. Hold on, let's see if you guys can see my hand raising. Oh, look at that! It shows a little hand raising.
Yeah,
there we go.
Start doing that. We could be polite for the listening audience because there isn't a visual. I just put a raising hand emoji on our list. Anyway, here I go again. Josh, please continue.
Similar to Zoom, for those that use Zoom. You can raise your hand in Zoom and you can raise your hand in our little platform here. All I was going to say is that for me, depending on what we're talking about here, I believe exposure is the way to generate, or not generate success, but is the way to measure success. Did we get the message out that the Paralympics are here and they are worth watching? If we have more eyeballs on the Paralympics than we have in previous iterations, I think I made up a word there.
Cool.
If we have more people watching these Paralympic athletes who deserve our attention, then people are going to start demanding more sports and they're going to start demanding more coverage. And we're going to see more dollars go towards it, which ultimately, as Cameron likes to tell us, is how things get done in this world. It's all about the almighty dollar. So
yeah,
I don't think we can go an episode without one of us bringing that up anymore.
Yeah. Never going to live it down.
Nope. No, you're not. And that's okay. It's a valid point,
truthful.
And that's why.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
now, sir, I am done.
Thank you. Maybe we should start doing that, although the listening audience would be incredibly bored if we're like, I'm done now. We're almost done this segment, I promise. I find myself, Cameron, going through life and going, it's all about the almighty dollar. And then I giggle because I'm like, there's Cameron again in my mind. Like, you live rent free with that statement in my mind. It's kind of sick. Could you pay rent in here someday? Like, I could use it. Like, please.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to bring something good to your life that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. And I think at the end of the day, that's what anyone wants, is to be a good influence. And obviously, I've been a good influence on you boys, and you're getting through with the almighty dollar.
Better move on from this segment because speaking of the almighty dollar, our technical producer might charge us an almighty dollar. This episode might continue much longer, and we still have Daniella Ponticelli coming up in a bit, so you'll hear from her in just seconds. Mark's gonna play some fancy music and then my intro, and then that conversation gets going, so stay tuned for that. Insert Mark's fancy music right here. We are excited to be joined by broadcaster Daniella Ponticelli, who for the first time in her career got the opportunity to broadcast at the 2026 Winter Olympic Games. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So, Daniella, can you maybe start by telling us how you got started in this crazy broadcasting career?
Crazy is a good way to summarize it. I was thinking, how do I keep this short and sweet? The origin story is quite simple. I was actually really interested in being a news journalist, particularly in newspapers. That's actually what I wanted to do. Didn't know, of course, how long that might last, but that was kind of where I wanted to start. And that is where I started. So after I did my communications journalism training, went to post-secondary for that, I started right out working at a daily newspaper. It wasn't long after that I got a job in local television. I'm talking about community television. And to this day, I would not be where I am without that. And that was in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. But it taught me everything I needed to really know. You get taught it in school, but it's not the same. Everybody knows that. You have to go out and do it. So learning how to host, how to report, how to write, how to put together not only a 2-minute piece, but a 30-minute, an hour show even, videography and behind the scenes editing, how to do things quickly to turn around a deadline, how to take time and do a project that might be a 6-month project. All of those things, in hindsight, I can't believe I had all those opportunities. I also got a taste of sports commentary during this time. Sports was never on my radar, and it wasn't that I didn't like sports. I just didn't think it was for me. Didn't really have much interest in it. I was really focused on news. But I got to do one of the first ever mobile productions. For those who don't know, that's when you work out of a truck on the site. And that's how NHL games are done. That's how PWHL games are done. CFL, right? It's how everything is done because you have to be on site. And so my first time working in a truck, I was actually doing graphics work. Like I was doing the scoring on a curling game. And I just loved it. Like there's a whole vibe and experience of being in the truck. And that was really cool. And I'm like, maybe this could be something neat. But, I kept going and I kept thinking of it more as a side gig. First time I ever put a headset on to commentate a sport was actually cheerleading. There's a big tournament that happens, competition, that happens every year in Saskatchewan. And because I had experience as a coach and as a former cheerleader myself, it just made sense. And I really enjoyed it. But again, never really thought much of it. So kept going along in my journalism career, saw an opportunity to switch from news to sports, took a job with the Saskatchewan Rush of the National Lacrosse League. Initially to be a sideline reporter for them, got moved to doing in-stand that year, which exposed me to how great game day operations are. And that got me hooked on sort of I want to be part of game days. That's what I love about sports. I didn't know how I felt about being a sports reporter, or not that wasn't something I wanted to do, but I liked reporting on news, but I loved the game day. And so after a season with them, kind of doing everything, right? Like in-stand, hosting, producing, putting together a 30-minute magazine show just about the team every 2 weeks. It was just nonstop, but I loved it. I was excited for it. I went back the next year, got to do the broadcasting like I was supposed to do year one. And I don't know if anyone remembers what happened in 2020, but sports were kind of put on hold for just a little bit. So that cut that season totally short for me. And I thankfully had news to fall back on, because that was one thing. Their business was booming for news, right? During the pandemic, a very difficult time to be in news because you just constantly talk about the same thing. It was heavy. You're living it. You had to also go into work all the time and go through this in real time with everybody that you're reporting to and reporting on. And then of course there's that whole, groundswell of hatred towards the media. So I had kind of reached this point where I wasn't sure where I was going. And I should say, as I mentioned to you, sports was always something that I did on the side, and I was working all behind the scenes. So while I was doing this big stretch into journalism, I did camera work for football games. I did camera work for hockey games. I did, what else? Oh my goodness. Oh, how could I forget? It's the most important thing. I put the headset on again, but to call roller derby. Roller derby was a sport I was playing on the side. And for those who understand, it's a fringe sport, right? It's not mainstream. The people who love it so deeply, so passionately. They're the ones that put on these incredible bouts. They put on international championships, but everything is done for the player, by the players. Everything is so community driven. That's what made me love it. That also meant for the announcers. I would travel to the U.S., but it was all my own dime, all my own vacation time. it didn't matter. I loved it, getting to call these bouts. But so all these things are happening. COVID makes me think there's no way that sports is in the cards for me now. I need to just stay focused on what I need to do. But, fate has, the universe has other ways of working. And I took an opportunity to call women's hockey. And truly from that point in October 2021, my life has not been the same since before then. And I fully made the transition into sports, fully making it my priority.
Well, that is a remarkable summary, and I know exactly what you mean.
Probably too long still. Sorry,
No.
Joshua.
It's all right. We love detail. Funny enough, my sister-in-law and my brother are both involved in Derby, so
Yes.
I know Derby quite well. They're
Which
out
league?
of Kitchener.
Nice.
So they've been all over. My brother's a referee, a skating official, so he follows everybody around, and
It's great.
does
I
his
actually
thing.
got so into Derby that I started to learn how to officiate in my last year, because I kept thinking, like, I want to keep doing more tournaments, but our team would only travel so much, and we were more
Right.
rec league. So I wasn't necessarily going to go as a player, right? And so I was looking at all avenues, and one, of course, was announcing, because it was just the perfect blend of everything I had learned up to that point, everything that I was doing. To this day, roller derby, like, that's the whole reason that I got into play-by-play and really even considered that as something I want to invest my time and my energy into learning about it and actually doing.
That is very cool. Can you take us back for a moment? We mentioned in the intro that you got the chance to be a broadcaster at 2026 Olympic Games. What was it like getting that confirmation that, yes, you're going to be doing that?
I can tell you exactly where I was. It's June of 2025, so last year. And PWHL season had wrapped up. That's where I do most of my winter work. And I was visiting my mom in Kelowna, BC. I had a Zoom call coming in with CBC. One of those things where I thought it might be one or two people, but there was a whole bunch of people and it was totally fine. I didn't mind that at all. It was a great conversation. I had a really strong feeling that I was going to be told I would be involved somehow, just based on some of the conversations we had. Did not know anything about whether it would be hockey. As much as I was hoping it would be, hockey is such... I mean, it's Canada's national winter sport. That is massive. That is major. Did not know if I had done enough to this point to be considered for that. By the way, I have worked in Olympics before. It was the summer, Paris 2024. So this was my first Winter Olympic experience. And I was obviously nervous getting the call, but they told me, hey, we feel like we want you. Not only we want you, but also we want you to call hockey. And you feel like there were so many things going on. I was just so excited. And I remember, like, finishing the call. It wasn't a very long call. Finishing the call and just kind of walking around. I told my mom, obviously I was there visiting her, but you can't tell anybody else. We weren't even, supposed to be reaching out or talking to any other commentators, because they need to get their news when they get their news. I did know that I'd be working with Becky Keller, which immediately was also, like, jumping up and down excited. Someone I work so well with and have worked so much with, but also 4-time Olympian, 3-time champion for Canada, silver medalist in 1998. I mean, she's so interwoven with women's hockey history, 98 being the first Winter Olympics where they had women's hockey. So there's just so much, like, that in and of itself is just such an honor. But that was it. And then you just sort of wait and you kind of keep this information in your brain for a bit. And then you start thinking, there's not much I can do right now, because I have to wait until the schedule comes out. Then I have to wait until the rosters are announced. And then there's so much hurry up and wait, right? Or wait and hurry up, maybe. The reverse of that this time. Yeah, wait and hurry up. That last month and then even the final weeks leading into the Olympics are really intense, just to make sure you have all the prep, you have everything ready to go. Because rosters especially, a lot of it's down to the wire. And we were actually told on the women's side that we might not even know until mid-January. Thankfully, all the women's nations got their stuff in, and were publicly announced early enough in the new year. So it wasn't too much of a very quick turnaround.
So I follow you on Instagram, and so I saw that you were doing it remotely.
Yes.
From the CBC building. And what is it like to call a game remotely compared to if you're there in person?
It's a really great question. And since I shared that reality, that experience online, that's been a number one question I've gotten. So it's a good question because you might think like, wow, it must be so different. Two things are true here. One, I'm a big advocate of being there, right? And that's how it works in the NHL and the PWHL. Although we are seeing more and more these remote opportunities happening or these remote options happening, whether it's, okay, at home you're in the building and away you're not, or whatever the setup is. There's an event coming up, I won't mention it yet, but where I'll be remote again. But it's because the actual building, if we want really good cameras, and we do in place, the only setup for me would be on one of the ends. Nobody wants to call a hockey game that way. So then it doesn't make sense, right? Then you're anyway calling off a monitor. So sometimes it's because of that, sometimes it's not. I will say this, I've now done quite a few of these in the lead up to the Olympics, because when Women's Worlds goes overseas to Finland or Czechia, they don't bring the entire crew over. So we have a great crew, camera, the director, producer over there, and we're working, from Toronto to, České Budějovice, Czechia. It's quite an interesting operation. When you put the headset on, though, I find that is the moment for me where I just feel locked in. And I realize that it's because I hear everything the exact same as even when I'm in the building. So it's a really great point to just root myself and go, like, I'm in this. I'm there, like I'm feeling this game as I would if I were in the building. It always helps having a lively crowd. Italy was fantastic for that because we had that in our ear, just like we would in a game, right? And so that was really fantastic. I find even, and I'm sure most play-by-play will agree, if you're in the building and there's also 25 people in the stands, that's going to be maybe a little harder depending on how the game goes to keep that energy up the whole time. Because that's always what we're trying to keep focused on, is staying locked into the game, getting the flow of the game, getting that energy up. And I will say that with the Olympics, we were so wonderfully treated to fantastic camera work, the most incredible angles. If you watched, you saw that freeze frame. That was incredible. We don't have access to that, right, all the time. Yeah. So the Olympics were like a rare special treat that even though we weren't there remotely, we could access so much information. And I did keep track of like potential delayed penalties I might not have caught, because that's one thing, right? The officials in the back and the cameras are on them, you're not going to see it. Mm-hmm. But I maybe missed one, and it wasn't awkward. Point is, I really still want everybody to be in the building, but it is really incredible how technology has allowed us to at least make sure that things are broadcast. This is a huge benefit, of course, for any league that's maybe trying to start out with broadcasting, needs some, just wants to get their product out, but wants to have good talent, but doesn't know how to get all of that in one place. There's definitely benefits to it. But overall, I mean, gosh, it just looked amazing. There were so many times when I was watching and I'm going, wow, of course, like you'd want to be in that energy, but you can still feel that energy. I had a question, though, in return for you all. What would you think would be a challenge in that? Because I have been asked that question, and sometimes I'm like, I'm curious what people think might actually be the biggest challenge.
Well, for me, I would assume that it would be just feeling the energy of the building, because you're not physically there. So as long as you can hear it, that makes sense to me that you'd be able to feed off that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say I would just say for myself, I've always kind of wondered, like, how much of a delay is there from when you watch it to what you're saying, or how you're doing the play-by-play. So that's kind of one question. I guess that's back to you. Maybe I'm not answering your question.
Yeah, no, I've been very fortunate that anytime I've done remote work, everything is as it is in the real time we are perceiving it. So it's wow. There might be, do you understand? Like there might be a delay in the transmission. And this has happened where, although it didn't happen to me, it happened to somebody else I know, where the stats were updating, like a goal was scored, but the goal hadn't happened yet. That's freaky, right? Okay. Yes. So that can happen, but we're not speaking to something that is then transmitted with a delay. So basically, does that make sense? Like the transmission would be coming from overseas. We would be just talking to what we see as it's happening on screen. So you're getting everything together as the viewer at home. For Italy, I don't think there was a delay at all because we're obviously following along on the stats as we would even if we were in the building, but following along on the stats. And there was no delay at all. In fact, as soon as the goal was scored, I would look over and I could see, like when Becky's giving the breakdown, that's when the goal would pop up, confirming the score and the those with the assist. So it was pretty great in that sense. There really was no delay, but it's a really good question. I do know that there have been broadcasts where the remote studio has led to even a second delay on the voice, and that's really difficult. But again, I know exactly what happened in that. It was the transmission of the video was separate to the transmission of the audio.
Okay.
I know we're getting really
good that you have
technical
that
here,
background because you've done so much that you understand it too, which helps.
Yeah.
Is it
because? Sorry, Brock. That's okay. The only other thing I was going to ask or a comment is that one of the reasons why I wonder that is because if I'm watching a game on TV and I have the internet TV. And my friends always text me, Toronto scored a goal.
Yes. And you're like,
and
don't tell me that.
They have? So I got to turn my damn phone off. So then I don't know because I'm like, nope. And then like 60 seconds later, they finally score.
Well, have you seen on TikTok or Insta, there's videos of people who live right beside, Rogers Center, right?
Yeah.
And so they'll hear something that has happened before they see it on TV because they're not in the building, but they live. So that's the reality of linear to digital streaming. It happens even in our house. Like I'll be upstairs working on something. And so I'm watching it on my phone. And I react to it. Meanwhile, my partner's downstairs. He's watching it. He's like, "Hey, what happened?" So that is something totally separate, and that doesn't have to do with a remote call or not, right? Like those people are still calling the building. That's purely based on the feed that is being accessed by the outlet, and TV will, from my understanding, will be delayed more than I think a stream is sometimes, depending on the outlet. So, but you are so right. In fact, here's a little story. Game 7 of the World Series this year, we decided to have some folks, some friends over to watch. And one of our friends, I did not know this prior to inviting him over, but he's into the live betting. And the reason why that was annoying is that the live bets were updating to real time, but we were watching on television. So at one point in the first inning, he goes, "Oh, well, yeah, it turns out well for Toronto because this thing happens." And I just said to him, I'm like, if you're going to do that, you are kicked out. We are not, you are not ruining,
You're suspended for the next 3 games of the World Series.
I even said to him, like, if you so much as make a face to hint at a reaction, I am no. So that it just goes to show the reality of how you watch sports. So I think it's always safest to just, if you're going to watch it on TV, just watch it all on TV. If you're going to watch it on your phone, try to watch it all on your phone.
Yeah, 100%.
But having 2 going at the same time is messy.
And mute the notifications.
And mute the notifications. If you want a live bet, do it on your own.
Brock, did you need to jump in or shall I? I guess
Here
not.
we go.
So just piggybacking off of the last question there. At the Olympics, you did have the opportunity to broadcast both women's hockey and ski cross. What is that like to sort of strike a balance between the two and jumping from one to the other?
One thing that the people who help select talent or decide who's going to be assigned to these sports, what they think of is the broader group of, are you in a sport that is judged? Are you in a sport that is timed? Are you in a sport that is... So what they're trying to evaluate there is looking at, okay, so this person's really good at a sense of urgency or is able to kind of key in on a race. So in a lot of ways, a race, you could find some similarities to a hockey game in that it's a timed sort of moment. There's urgency. There's this very clear objective of what you need to do, as opposed to if they threw me on figure skating, which, by the way, would be my dream. I love watching figure skating, but that's also just not at all, as a commentator right now, what I'm working on.
Right.
Very different. So obviously you take it in and you start to look at what the flow of a ski cross race would be. I did get to do some prior to the Olympics, obviously, with CBC. So that was neat. So just getting kind of familiar with watching the skiers, watching their bib colors, which, by the way, that is a test right there. Because they're wearing blue, but they've got the red bib, and then someone's wearing yellow with the green bib, but you're looking at the bibs and not the I'm like, and nobody keeps not necessarily do you keep your bib color unless you're like the number one seeded in qualifiers. You could switch colors in every single race. So there's so many little nuances there as someone calling it to take it in. But honestly, the amount of fun I had, the amount of intensity that I could bring to it matched so well with just my style in how I call hockey and how I enjoy calling hockey. So some similarities in that regard, but definitely different. And also knowing when to lay off, allow the expert, the amazing analyst we had, Kelsey Surwa, again, a three-time Olympian, two-time medalist, champion in 2018. Just incredible, knows the sport so well, knows people in the sport still, actually skied with many of the Canadian Olympians. So that's just great. Like, so it's always just a matter of understanding that dynamic. And yeah, it was just incredible. And then just trying to tap into the emotion of what we're seeing. And on the men's side, there was a lot of drama the day that their races happened. People were disqualified. People were, these things, everything comes down to the wire. Way more than the women. There was one person in the women's racing who didn't finish. And it's because it's based on conditions and all the different factors that go into it. So not necessarily a difficult transition to make. And I was very grateful, of course, that I made that transition after the women's hockey wrapped up. So there was no having to keep my brain focused on something while also this other thing was going on. It was a very clear, okay, we're done with this. And that's very much how I am as a learner. If I'm going to focus or hyper focus on something, it's nice to not have to have something else sort of running in the background.
100%. So let's talk about the women's hockey.
Yes.
Because that's Canada's favorite pastime sport. They were so close to winning another gold medal, but they came up just a little bit short. So what is your assessment between that Canadian and U.S. game? And do you think that Canada's going to be set up for the future to make a run, or is the U.S. going to be going on a bit of a run now? Because I think some of the players on Team Canada, I think they're probably going to retire.
Okay, so yes, okay, you've asked me kind of like multiple questions in that question, so I'm going to just start at the beginning. No, because they're all very good and all connected, but in my mind might be a little bit separate. So first of all, that game, I was very proud of Canada because in my mind, especially a very strong first period, they played their best hockey when they needed to. Now, their best didn't lead to a goal in that game. It's also hockey. And anytime you go into overtime, everything in my mind resets. It doesn't matter that you outshot your opponent. It doesn't matter that you had the lead for however long you had. Everything is reset. Everything is on the table when you start. And when you make it 3-on-3, yeah, that's a whole other ballgame. You have to understand the intricacies of that. And the U.S., just going back to last year's Women's Worlds where they won in Czechia, they won in overtime 3-on-3. And so when that happened, I was braced for it because I was wondering how much does Canada have a strategy with 3-on-3? Is there a strategy? Is it just simply, do what you know how to do? You're all incredible players. Because 3-on-3 is very different. Some people play it possessively. Some people, you have to be ready for the rush on the way back. It's much happens with just those six players on the ice between the two teams. So yes, difficult that they fell short. Very impressive by the United States. What I find the most intriguing part of this, and something that I really hope Canada will look to, is the emphasis clearly on development from the U.S. side. It's one thing to say, well, they had a plan and they executed it as mission accomplished because they won the gold. I think even if somehow they lost in overtime, there would have still been that was the best U.S. women's team that they've put together, and everyone on that team, including coaching staff who've been on former teams, agree, because what they did was key in on development. So people talk about youth. It's not about age. It's about what have you been able to give these amazingly skilled players. Yes, they're young, but the development was the entire focus of it all. And when you look at John Robleski, I think that the coach, his whole background is NHL development. Yeah. And so they didn't look at someone who went, okay, has he had all this previous head coaching? Like, they really took some risks, but they knew what they were getting into because they knew what their focus was. So my wish for Canada, and it is possible, is that they look to, okay, how do we want to focus our philosophy? In my mind, I was not surprised at all when Troy Ryan, head coach of the Scepters, announced stepping back, and there will be a new Canadian head coach for the Worlds coming up in November. Is there going to be a new GM? Are we going to look at some big changes? Is it the right call to take on the assistant coaches and just level them up when maybe you need a philosophy change or maybe you need to reset your goals? Canada is very well positioned here when you just look at the PWHL and the talent that isn't retiring, by the way, that will be here in 4 years. Great Canadian talent. First of all, most number of athletes from a nation in the league is Canada. Most points overall by a nation in the league is Canada. So we've got the talent, we have the ability, and that's the litmus test right now, right? The best on best through the Professional Women's Hockey League. So, in short, it's never in short, but I do think that there's great building blocks, but the building needs to start now. And I believe, obviously, the decision to make that leadership change is important. Do I blame Troy Ryan for this? This is a Hockey Canada overlooking where they want to go. And it shouldn't be panic mode. This is just simply going, what do we like? What have we done well? What is our identity? But how do we shift and combat and make these changes in a fast evolving game, a game that now on the professional side includes contact, big physicality, because that's the other adjustment you have to make when you go on the international stage is how to pull back. Although I'm noticing very anecdotally that officials seem to be just fine with a bit more of that than in years previous, which was good because it allows for the play. It's just it's aggressive. It's fast. That's hockey, right? So, yeah, and I look to not only Chloe Primorano, who, of course, has been now put on this really big pedestal. I think she can rise to that occasion, absolutely. It's going to take her a little time. She's so young. She came into the NCAA as an underager. She's already doing big things. But I also look to someone like Sarah Manis, who just won a number of awards, who was sitting in fifth in – she's Canadian, by the way, from Ontario – fifth in the NCAA scoring at the time of the Olympics. Everyone above her and about 10 players below her were representing their nations in Italy. So that just tells you, and she's not the only one. I'm just using her because her name, someone I called at the U18s, helped Canada win a goal, the U18s. So the future is bright, but I really believe you got to look at development and how do you combat that? Because now the U.S. is 4 years ahead of you, 3 years ahead of you in that department.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to get your perspective on that because I didn't get to see all of the gold medal game, unfortunately. And so I only saw the overtime and thought, what are we doing? How did we lose this? But that's okay. That's all right. We know she had a bit of a tough tournament with her injury, but let's talk a little bit about Captain Canada, Marie-Philippe Poulin. What does your gut tell you about her? Do you think she's going to be back to lead the charge here, or have we maybe seen the last?
The day of the gold medal game, that question, and my instinct was she's absolutely back. Now, does she wear the C? I guess. I mean, if you're coming back for another, possibly. I believe that given who she is, how she approaches the sport and the game and her performance and her dedication. Is it all right if she's not there in 4 years? Absolutely. But would I be surprised if she was? Not at all. I think that there's a fire in her and a passion in her. And when you consider she'd be maybe 38 at the time, there's men performing at that level. And I think this is going to be where we see advancement in resources for women on sports performance side. She now has access to incredible resources as a member of the Montreal Victoire. And of course, just in her own journey, she already has been on this incredible track of performance recovery, understanding what she needs and what her body needs. And my goodness, you see her out there in the PWHL, and yeah, you just wish for 10 more years. You just wish for, because that was always the thing when you saw her year one, and you sort of had this little part of you that went, oh, we know she played in the CWHL, she played in women's leagues, but to finally have the league that was for her at this now time in her career that a lot of people are every year might be asking, is she going to retire? I say let her play. She knows herself very well, and I do think that I have a strong feeling, even though I know nothing about anything, that she will be there in 4 years if that is her mission. And I think it is very telling that she did not say or announce this would be her last. I think that to me is the biggest tell that she clearly hasn't made that decision, and a burning desire to get back to gold, that might be enough to keep you going.
So going off the board here with a question I just thought of. You lived in Saskatchewan. How long did you live in Saskatchewan?
For the better part of a decade. I did live between Saskatoon and Regina, and then I had a little brief pit stop back in Winnipeg where I studied and where I lived for a good chunk of my life, just to, again, just keep growing in my career. So I took a job out in Winnipeg, eventually came back to Saskatchewan to kind of keep growing. But yeah, so a decade. Mm-hmm.
And what about in Toronto?
Toronto, I've been in Ontario since December of 2023. That is exactly 1 month before the PWHL started.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, now that you're in Ontario and living in Toronto, I'm a little bit disappointed that you're still a Rough Rider fan and not an Argos fan. But I know
about the Canadian Football League. I mean, here's the thing. I have created this my own rules about it. The Argos are my Eastern team. The Riders are my Western team/team. But I now, of course, am watching way more Argos football in person. I'm dating the PA announcer. There you go. Exclusive on your podcast here. It's you heard it here first. No, not at all. We've been together, of course, for quite a while. So yeah, I just love it. I love Argos football so much that when I was actually doing some PA announcing at U Sports level for the Guelph Griffins this past season. Okay. And I would drive the end of the Griffins game to catch the Argos game. But the earliest I could ever get there was, if I was lucky, the start of the fourth quarter. And I would sit in that hellish traffic just to get there, because I'm like, I just love watching football, and I love watching football in person, because you don't get as much access to football as you do other sports. It's only, 9 home games. That's it. So yeah, it's hard to say. Obviously you grow to love a team that you get to watch a lot, but when it's Argos Riders, it's Riders all the way.
And since you've only been here a couple of years, or 3 years, I understand that, because it was 10 years. So that's why I was trying to figure out if you've been in Ontario longer now or Saskatchewan. Because if you were going to tell me that you were in Toronto or Ontario longer, then I was going to be like, there's no excuse for you not to be a full-fledged Argos fan.
I will also say that with the Riders, they were the team that got me to really fall in love with the CFL. I mentioned, obviously, I spent a lot of time in Winnipeg. I went to a couple Blue Bombers games. My family wasn't really as into it. So when I started living on my own and made that move to Saskatchewan, I was always looking for things to do. And that happened to be something that my friends in Saskatoon were like, let's get on a bus and go down to a Labor Day Classic. And that to me was like the definition of hook it in my veins, I just couldn't get enough of it. And the next season, went to a few more and kind of got into it a bit more. And then lo and behold, in 2019, I started doing camera work for the Maxtron at Mosaic Stadium. And that was a great season for them. That was the season when Cody Fajardo took over and at least got them into a playoff game, a playoff game that I got to watch through, the camera lens and the heartbreak of him throwing it right into the the goal post, which allegedly won't happen anymore with the new rules. So I say, just watch. Someone's still going to hit it somehow. I don't know.
Oh, guaranteed.
So it has a piece of my heart in a different way. And then when I decided to become a freelance play-by-play, I started calling football, but also worked for the Riders as a writer with them year one. And then I hosted a podcast for them. So there was just this closeness with that team that I don't know if I'll ever separate that. Even though people are still there, people are leaving, there's still just that basis for why I love the CFL so much is very much rooted in that.
Daniella, we're going to have your partner Adam on in a couple of weeks from this interview. And one of the things that came to my mind, because I also learned that little nugget, was like, I wonder if it hurts him on the inside that, you root for.
He doesn't seem to show it. I think it's because we just both love CFL so much. And falling in love with someone, there's so many things that, you're like, well, it'd be really nice if they like this thing I like. It is quite awesome when you get to share that together. I mean, we go on road trips together to watch games. I booked us a cabin for the weekend in the summer, but there was a Rider game on earlier on the Friday, and then the Argos game was the later game. I fully bought a international hotspot with an eSIM so we could watch the games. It's just, I think, I can't speak for him. You'll have to ask him, but I think it's, even though I do cheer for another team, sometimes I will wear an Argos shirt to Argos games, folks. I will be there. I cheered them on when I got to watch them win 2 Grey Cups in the 4 years that we've been going to Grey Cups together, which is insane. And then he was by my side cheering on the Riders when they won last year. So I don't know what will happen, though, if we did have a chat about whether these teams meet in the Grey Cup, because that would significantly alter things. We wouldn't be able to see each other after the game. I think after the game, I would need to ride off into the sunset with some Rider fans and go celebrate our win. And he would have to figure out,
go cry in the bar afterwards.
Because that's one of the things about Grey Cup that we love, is that we get to, obviously you're there for the game, but then after the game, you're riding that high, and you also want to be around other fans from that team. I would not want to be around Argos fans if my team just lost, and vice versa. So we'll have to circle back to that if we ever get an opportunity to have a Riders Argos Grey Cup.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a conversation of what it looks like before it actually happens. Daniella, thank you so much for taking the time and having this conversation. It was really great, and we loved your perspective and just little anecdotes as well. We'll have to have you on again sometime when the Toronto Scepters win the PWHL or something in between, if something good happens. But I'm putting it in the ether.
Wait, Brock, is that a prediction for this season, or are you just saying when it happens?
No, not this season. I'm not willing to go there this season. But when they do, because I believe it will happen. But when they do, I would like to have you back on again. So thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Okay, I know I'm going to steal one more minute of your time. Brock, I do want to know, who do you predict will win the Walter Cup this season, based entirely on this moment in time right now?
If I would, you can never bet against Montreal. You can never bet against Montreal. They're always figure out a way to make it happen. But we'll see.
I'm excited for that. You know what? Montreal's certainly on, they put the league on notice with how they're playing right now, because they're getting that depth scoring, which has been the only reason in my mind that they weren't able to make it through the first round of playoffs the last 2 seasons. But they're consistently a top 2 team, even with major turnover. So their systems are working. That is a good prediction. There you go. And they would be the first Canadian team to hoist it. I know teams want to get Minnesota off the perch for sure.
I was so devastated when Toronto lost to Minnesota in the first year. It was like, oh, but it was there. They had it. It could have been, and we could have celebrated a Toronto victory because we haven't had a victory since 2019 in the Raptors, but I digress.
It's coming. It's coming. Yeah, that series is one that's very memorable. I was able to call it, and your heart sort of falls. Like I don't have a team I cheer for because we are you're supposed to be anyway a neutral broadcast when we do these things. So you're always just cheering for the best hockey or what's best for the team in the moment. So if a team is down, you're trying to talk about the ways that they are going to climb out of it. If a team has the lead, how do they just keep dominating? And you sort of try to strike that balance. But when Natalie Spooner, I just hate injuries, obviously. But when Natalie Spooner got hurt in Minnesota, Game 3, you just sort of felt like, whoa. Yeah. Because she was the key. So just great to have her back in the league, of course. But yeah, that was I remember that game vividly. That was a tough game. That was also a 1-0 game that went to double OT.
Yeah. It wasn't 3-on-3, if I remember correctly.
No, so in the playoffs, it is full period 5-on-5, which leads to those, as Montreal knows, because they've played in a lot of very long games. They played in the quadruple overtime game, and they won it.
Which tells you exactly how I feel about 3-on-3 in Olympic gold medal finals, but we don't have enough time to get
I know,
through
I'm keeping you overtime now, so thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. That was Daniella Ponticelli, who joined us to talk about her time at the Olympics, a little bit of PWHL, and we very much appreciated it. That is the end of our program for this week. I'd like to thank Josh Watson, Cam Jenkins. I'd also like to thank our technical producer, Mark Affollo. If you hung with us for this hour-and-a-half podcast, we greatly appreciate you, and you get a gold star for being a wonderful listener. We appreciate you. Until next week, be safe, be well.